I hereby call the City of Lloydminster Council regular council meeting to order for Monday, September 10th, 2018. This time we will take a silent moment of personal reflection. As a reminder, all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or a pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Lloydminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. Moving on to the agenda, is there any additions or deletions to this agenda at this time? Not seeing any from the administration. Moving to agenda item number 3, the approval of the agenda. I'll look for a recommendation to council. Councilor Buckingham.
With the agenda dated September 10th, 2018 be approved.
Seconder, Councilor Thorson. Any questions or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to agenda item number 4, the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. I'll look for council for direction. Councilor Buckingham.
With the regular council minutes dated August 20th, 2018 be approved.
Seconder, Councilor Monroe. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving to item number 5 on the agenda is business arising from the minutes. Not seeing any, I will move to item number 6, public presentations. And 6.1 is the Nikopol Ukrainian delegation. So I'm going to move to the podium. I would invite His Worship and stand up, please, to join me. It's with a great deal of pleasure I'd like to introduce to our council and to the people in the gallery and the citizens of Lloydminster, the Mayor of Nikopol, Ukraine. Mayor Freisig has been in our community for today. Visited. We had the opportunity to sign the Twin Sister Cities Agreement earlier before lunch, and he is attending his first council meeting here in Canada. Since it's the mayor's first visit to Canada, there's a few items we would like to present to him for him to take back as souvenirs from our city. It's a print of Western Canada, which symbolizes a lot of what you see around and in the city of Lloydminster, heavily weighted on agriculture and oil and gas. So it's the gift to the mayor. You're very welcome. Additionally, I have for you a small book of engineering. It's a book on some information about Lloydminster from the economic perspective. A handy-dandy notebook that he'll be able to make notes on his way home after his great visit. And it would be without not having an opportunity to provide him with a copy of our city pin to demonstrate our border markers and the uniqueness of our city back in the Ukraine. You're very welcome.
Я обязательно размещу данную картину в здании исполкома.
I would like to thank you very much. I would put this beautiful painting in the office of my executive committee in Hall.
Немножко наглостью.
And if I may just say that.
Я знаю, что мы
городе Лойминстер.
Прошу флаг города для того, чтобы людей города Владимира его поднять флаг.
And I would,
На прошлом.
and if I may be, if I may ask for a flag of Westminster to be raised near the city council of Nipopol on that day. If you have it, I would kindly ask you to give one to me so it can be done on the train.
We will see that if it's available today, we will. If not, we will send it to you. And as we can send this if you like as well first. That will be taken care of.
Сейчас посмотрим, если I'll carry this myself.
Okay, perfect.
Returning to the agenda of item 6.2, I'll invite the mayor and his delegation to stay for the meeting. This will be an opportunity for them to see the operations and the process that we go through at our city council meetings. So please enjoy. Moving on to agenda item 6.2, I'd like to welcome a delegation from the Alberta Smoke-Free Spaces Awards Program 2018 to come forward to the center mic, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This past June, 16 Alberta municipalities, school boards, and post-secondary institutions received a Smoke-Free Spaces Recognition Award for approving comprehensive smoke-free bylaws and policies in their communities, school districts, and their campuses. The City of Lloydminster was one of the 3 municipalities who received this recognition. Les Hagan, the Executive Director of the ASH, spoke at the event. He stated, "We applaud these trailblazing leaders for providing smoke-free indoor and outdoor environments for their residents, visitors, staff, and students. Cannabis legalization has the potential to renormalize smoking, and these public bodies have decided to get in front of the issue by expanding their smoke-free policies to include any substance that can be smoked or vaped. We encourage all public bodies in Lloydminster to follow the lead of these exemplars and to place a top priority on protecting the quality of life of their residents, staff, and students as cannabis legalization approaches."
The new Smoke-Free Spaces program recognizes local governments and public bodies that have gone the extra mile to promote healthy, smoke-free indoor and outdoor spaces. The program was developed by a partnership with prominent health and recreation organizations, including Action on Smoking and Health, Alberta Blue Cross, Alberta Health Services, Alberta Policy Coalition for Chronic Disease and Prevention, Alberta Recreation and Parks Association, Canadian Cancer Society, Heart and Stroke Foundation, and the Lung Association. Tobacco use is the most widespread and deadly form of substance abuse in Canada. This award highlights the importance of comprehensive policy measures that address the public consumption of all legal substances in the most consistent manner possible. As an award winner, Lloydminster has been officially designated a smoke-free community. Alberta Smoke-Free Spaces has provided signage, posters, decals, artwork, and online resources to promote the new designation to residents, visitors, staff, and students.
Thank you to the Lloydminster City Council and your team. As an early adapter, we are blazing the trail for other public bodies that are preparing for cannabis legalization. Through our collective efforts, we can ensure that cannabis legalization will not renormalize public smoking. Smoking bans are a cornerstone of the successful effort to reduce tobacco use, and we can't allow this tremendous health achievement to be jeopardized. We have the award with us.
Maybe we'll go to the podium.
Thank you very much on behalf of the City Council and residents of Lloydminster. We're very proud to lead the charge with the ensuring that public spaces and all spaces are available to all public to enjoy their personal life. Moving on to agenda item number 7, new business. See 7.2, the office of the city clerk. To the city manager, to the city clerk.
Good afternoon, Your Worship Council. To present 7.2.1 draft traffic bylaw, 9/2018. Dan Hobson will come forward.
Good afternoon, Dan.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, City Council. So today we're bringing forward the draft traffic bylaw. I did receive first reading back in March, and then as you recall, we went to Your Voice for some public consultations in April. We're bringing it forward with some of the changes that we heard from the community in there, and we're looking for further direction from council of how to proceed. One thing that I'll note that's not mentioned in this RFD is because of the timing of everything at this point, when we do bring the draft bylaw forward for second and third reading, we would like to put in some sort of transitional clause. So this isn't, so the speed limits within playground zones and school zones aren't affected immediately. After getting your direction today, we would work with both the school boards to figure out what time would work best for that. Further to that, just another note from the RFD, we brought forward the dangerous goods route also for public consultation. There is a process required in Alberta if we are going to make changes through that. It will require more public consultation from what we did in just the Your Voice night. Engineering is recommending that we bring forward a consultant to get more of that public consultation done, and that would be looked at for next year, budget approval pending. Would there be any questions at this point? Or?
Well, to council, we'll start with Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks, Dan. I have a few that I'll try not to take too long with for you. The 8.9 edition and change to unhinged trailers that was added to this recently. I don't understand why it has to be worded the way it is. And I'll use myself as the example. Get back Sunday night, unhook my trailer, leave it in front of my house, deal with it, and have it gone within the allotted time. I'm reading this to say that that's not going to be allowable anymore. Is that accurate?
So what we've determined basically is that if it is unhitched, it's not going to insure the vehicle at that point. So that's why the bylaw is written the way it is and why that change was implemented.
I wonder if it's insured by who, because for instance, again, speaking from my own experience, I have a package policy on mine that runs 365, hitched or unhitched. So I was concerned with that because I know the majority of families that do this, I think most trailers sit there, most people in the city are really good about making sure they are within the time limit. But to think that I'm going to leave it there Sunday night and not move it till Monday is probably what I'm going to do, which would make me in violation of the bylaw if I read this correct.
You would be reading it correctly. It would be the same if you had an uninsured just car or truck. It would be against the bylaw to leave that on the road. So that's where it's coming from and the parallels being drawn.
Yeah, I think most people's insurance will be covered hitched or unhitched. So I would question that a little bit. Yeah, I can see it in certain places, but I mean, within the hours that were allowed, I think it's fine. I'm not necessarily not in favor of having it any other way. Having it unhitched and be immediately in contravention of the bylaw is a concern for me, and I think I bet you it's a concern for a lot of people. That was one that I wanted some more information on. The second one, reading the speed limits 1,600 meters north of 60 and so on and so forth. I just wondered, have there been any update on Highway 17 and 67th Street intersection? That's 1,600 meters. Does it take the speed limit out past 67? Because there's been serious concern about the fact that it got to 100 before we got out of 67th Street. There have been some near-miss collisions and different things that are not there. Does the change in this bylaw reflect reducing the speed limit at that intersection?
It would, coming into town,
From the north side, where more so coming out of town, going 17 north, the Diamond 7 Universal corner. Does that 1,600 meter, I didn't know where the line was, is that 1,600 meters included? Does it include that intersection?
I'll ask our director of engineering, because he knows off the top of his head, but if
Because I know
not,
we
we can bring that information back.
We've been working with SAS government, and I realize it's a provincial highway, it's not just something that we can do and change ourselves. So there have been numerous requests about that intersection, so I wondered if this had changed that.
Yes, the information in the bylaw that we see today does reflect a change in speed there. It is going from 80 to 70 as a transitional aspect of things. In our working with the SAS Highways, both parties came to an understanding that there's going to be needing for future updates to that intersection, and those are still to be determined on timing and what all is involved in that. It was discussed about, for example, like additional turning lanes and everything else too. And even in our transportation master plan, we're talking about identifying traffic lights at this intersection at some point in time in the near future as well.
So right now it's a 30-kilometer change in this is what, because it's 100 right at that corner.
Currently, it's 80 across the intersection right now.
Is it?
Yeah,
So
so we're moving it down to 70, and we're providing a longer 70 zone. So it's not, like today, it transitions from 60 to 80, basically within feet of the intersection. And normal practices, whatever may happen and everything else, everybody's speeding up at that point in time if they're exiting the city. So the thought process was, let's bring this back a little bit farther, to have that speed as a constant for a lot longer, and try it and see what comes up with this one.
And the last one that I was questioning was, we brought it forward previously, and I'm not sure that we ever heard much about it. So before we get through changing playground and school zones, I was wondering about consultation, information, anything we have on 36th Street east of 46th Avenue, the 30, 50, 30 zone, where it's 30 for a very long time in front of the ball diamonds behind the hospital, and lots of feedback at the Your Voice nights and different things since then to say it's ridiculous to have a 30 speed limit there when most of the time, especially in the winter time, there's nobody there. So I wondered if that had been discussed or looked at all. Because that's a newer addition that just changed in the last year or two to drop the speed limit in front of the ball diamonds.
It's
To
been,
the best of my knowledge.
it's been in place for 3 years now.
So yeah, recently, not always. So just wondering on that, because we hear a lot about that one in particular.
I can take some answer with that. On that one there, there's no doubt that we have to do a little bit of review in how we deal with our playgrounds and school zones. That one is highlighted as being one to be looked at in the near future for sure, because I'm hearing the same things that you're hearing. We just haven't got to it yet, unfortunately. There's different rules and guidelines associated with how playground zones are established, and there's an intermediate type of a zone called the playground area, and in that it just is more of a warning mechanism and not necessarily an enforcement mechanism. So we're looking at seeing how that would come into play and how that would work out within our municipality as well. So those are some of the things that we're working on in that aspect.
I just wondered if it was pertinent to bring it up now, because we're talking about harmonizing zone, playground zone, school zones, all of that stuff, and with all the feedback when we hear about it, probably a good time to bring it up. But those were the three things that had me very concerned, especially the NH trailers thing. I am just not behind that at all.
Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, my main question was around unhitched trailers as well. And, you know, as cities grow and you try and use space more efficiently, you end up getting neighborhoods that don't necessarily have a lot of space in the front yards, let's say, in terms of parking ability, especially when you get to pie-shaped lots, things like that. I'm just curious with the detached trailer being treated separately versus attached, whether or not that's fair, because I'm not sure in, you know, a good portion of the neighborhoods, if you're talking about College Park, Parkview, Lakeside, whether or not it's even practical to be able to have a trailer and have it left hitched, even for the period of time when you're unloading everything in your house, with how small the frontages of some of those lots are. I just don't see it as being all that practical. But that was one of the main things that stuck out to me. So, you know, I loud and clear what Councillor Buckingham is saying, and I think I'm seeing the world the same way in that case. And I was curious actually on his other question, as far as playground zones like that ball diamond one, is it possible to have seasonal playground zones? So you would have that be a playground zone during, let's say, particular months when people are, let's say, playing ball, which is really the only time that it would be a concern. It's just a question, I don't know whether it's possible or not.
Right, it also was raised at your voice to have a seasonal time zones for playgrounds as well. It's something that the administration at this time thought would almost be more confusing or similar to the current situation now where time zones are changing and times are changing. So, but if you'd like, we can certainly bring that proposal to that as well.
Councillor Dyche, I'm going to come.
Thank you, Richard. I hear that question, I guess, and the background behind it, I think that in many instances where schools have developed a playground, the city's actually contributed to those playgrounds as well, knowing that they're used beyond the hours of the school year and days of the school year. So even July and August, you can see there are many kids still on there. So I'd want to look a little closer at that because I think it's still used pretty frequently by kids during the off season, if you want to call it that. There's one other question, I guess, that we've had experience in my neighborhood with this, is that, again, I see a lot of people leaving their trailers on the road, and what it does do, depending where they park, is actually obstruct your view coming around the corner and knowing where someone's coming out, or if a child darts out and being able to see them. And I have a concern about that, even when you're going 30-plex. You really have no time to react if someone comes up from behind the trailer. But the other part that we're seeing is people actually parking their fifth wheel back in and the hitch is out on the side. And so they put a wrap around it, whatever it is, but I see kids that are zipping around on their bikes and talking to one another, they're distracted, and I see someone go down and get a few stitches in the process. So I don't know how that fits with these bylaws, or it's in a different place, or where it is. But
so if I can answer that question, the obstruction of the sidewalk, whether it's by a trailer or another thing, is still covered within the bylaw. So if the trailer does have a hitch or something sticking over a sidewalk, we could, the ability to deal with that's in there. If a vehicle is too close to the other roadway and it's creating an obstruction, then there is provisions within the bylaw as well as traffic safety acts to deal with those items.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. This trailer parking's got me twisted a little bit. What's going on here? Like, first of all, we know that there are many holiday trailers in this community. There are many construction trailers, and there's many highways in this community. And I watch every weekend on my block, people come home from the lake, they unhitch their trailer. Dad goes to work at 8 o'clock in the morning because they didn't get home till 9 o'clock Sunday night. Mom either dumbs the trailer out on Monday or Tuesday, reloads it Wednesday, and they're ready to go to the lake. What else are you supposed to do? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Unless somebody's complaining, and they're blocking a corner, or blocking somebody's drive. In the summer months, I don't see a thing wrong with a holiday trailer. I know it's not pretty to some people, but as it's been said by my colleagues, where do you park? We'll go for a drive into somebody's cul-de-sac. You're lucky if you can park your car, let alone, and I live in one of those cul-de-sacs. So I think that we got to review the whole parking thing with holiday trailers. There's a question of construction trailers. I know of cases where we've given tickets to people with construction trailers at job sites. I saw them, I read them. Nowadays, instead of throwing the tools in the back of an open half-ton, they put them in a trailer so they don't get stolen. And they might get stolen anyway. They leave the trailers on the curb, and I understand them. And they're working on a house, building a house, whatever. They go home at night, that's their tool crib. I don't know what the problem is with that. I just have no reason what they're interfering with that would not allow us to do that. The third thing is your 45-foot highways and box trailers. We have oil people all over this city and this region, and they're dollied off all over the place. That may be a problem. But there's a bigger problem to me, and that's when these trailers are dropped, and literally dropped, without pads under the footings. and poke holes through the pavement. I witnessed that too. So I think this whole trailer thing has to be reviewed, Your Worship, and certainly I can't vote in favor on the trailer issue alone. The question of playgrounds, there are some playgrounds that aren't even marked in the city, like Husky Ball Diamond. I've sent information through the city about the Husky Ball Diamond, but nothing happened. And the ball goes over the screen, the kids go roaring out on, I don't know, 52nd or whatever that street is there. And there's no signs. Over by the hospital, I've heard many, many times, there's about a half a mile of playground from, I don't know where, 40th to 36th. I wouldn't say it's a half mile, but it's probably a third of a mile. And nobody on those ball diamonds except at night, because they're not at the school. That's at the hospital diamond. So there's people complaining that, why is that a playground? So I'm throwing you lots of stuff, but again, Your Worship, I really think that this document should come back to a committee of the whole of council and go through this document. There's 40 some pages to it, and really have a good review and hear everybody's concerns about the bylaw. It's no disrespect, it's just a matter of getting it right. Has this gone to the RCMP?
Our senior manager of public safety has reviewed it. I don't know if he's reviewed it in conjunction with them or not, but he's our liaison with the RCMP, so.
Because there's a ton of stuff in here.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Absolutely, I can respond to some of that, Councillor. So with the trailers in the residential area, one of the difficulties that we have with the bylaw is trying to make sure that our bylaw is compliant with provincial law. So either we would have to remove a piece of that, or we would have to word it in such a way that we remain compliant with the provincial law and not allowing uninsured vehicles on the roadway. We certainly will take that back and see how we can balance those concerns. As for work trailers, absolutely we allow work trailers onto the roadway, but we do have a permitting process. So if our community people are working in an area, if they get a permit, then they're allowed to leave their trailer for certain periods of time. That allows for neighborhood coherence and people not having to complain about things within staying on roadways for longer period of times. And then the highways and damage to the roadways. We do have some within this current bylaw that speaks to the potential of damage to the roadway for tracked and spiked vehicles, and we can certainly look and make sure that other implements damaging roadways are covered as well. Absolutely, Council. And then school zones, once again, we wait to hear your direction on that.
Councilor Monroe.
I guess my opinion on this is that I live in a cul-de-sac. There's at least 5 trailers within my cul-de-sac who all manage to park in their own driveway or on their own property. They're not obstructing the road in any way, shape, or form. The average person in our community, I would say, has 2 vehicles. Perhaps you have more if you have children or what have you. But I'd rather have a vehicle parked on the road and the trailer in the individual's driveway than the trailer obstructing on the road. The height, the width makes it, if everybody on the street had a trailer, yes, theoretically that's not the case, but it could be. If everybody parked their trailer on the road, that's completely unsafe for pedestrians, for kids, for anybody. If all the vehicles are parked on the road, people can still walk above. When they're walking down the street, can still see out onto the street. You can still see children riding on their bikes. The fact of the matter is 48 hours is not an unreasonable amount of time. You can back your trailer up into your driveway, and if you have to park on the road for 3 or 4 days before you pull your trailer out again for the next week, I don't think that's unreasonable. The majority of people don't keep their trailers in their yards during the winter time anyways. They park them in different lots. I think there's one lot where they rent it for $35 a month if you choose to park your trailer out there throughout the winter months. So I think this is the best scenario. I was at that Your Voice night. People voiced it over and over again that they didn't want to see the trailers obstructing for children in residential areas. I think it's more important for me to have my children safe, or any child for that matter, safe on the sidewalk or an individual walking their dog, and being able to see that individual versus the convenience of having your trailer so that you can go camping again next weekend. Secondly, so 48 hours I don't think is unreasonable. And secondly, I'm really happy to see that the dusk to dawn removed and actually having those time limits, because it was another thing that was raised at Your Voice, that dusk to one person can vary within an hour to 2 hours. versus dawn can also vary within an hour to 2 hours for people. So having those specific times is a lot better to manage both for the RCMP and for individuals. So I'm happy to see that. I think that the feedback that we received at Your Voice was very much listened to when creating these bylaws. So thank you for that.
Councilor, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. If I may, just a response to Councilman Rowe. The problem we got with so many of the setbacks on our houses in this city, the driveways aren't long enough, and all kinds of goosenecks are hanging over the sidewalks, and there's ribbons hanging on them. And they're more dangerous, those gooseneck trailers, holiday trailers, than anything, because they have that crazy ball and system hanging. And you realize your property line starts 3 feet inside of the city sidewalk. It doesn't start at the city sidewalk. I think it's a minimum of 1 meter. And a lot of those balls on those trailers are actually hanging over the sidewalk. And there was some that were out there all last winter. So I don't know how we police that, but I'm just saying that's the danger of these trailers, or the hitches sticking out. Because a lot of these holiday trailers, they're not 20 feet long anymore, they're pretty big. So please consider that in your thought process. Thanks.
Just one more piece to add to that, I guess, is that we have, in our neighborhood, there are a couple people have the motorized coaches. So where do they fit in this? Is there a category for them in here as well, so they can park their 40-foot coach on some other trailer or fifth wheel? Or where does it, how was it captured here?
I'd have to review the definition and come back.
Because I know we've been talking fifth wheels, and yet I know in our neighborhood, I see these coaches go by, and one of the challenges is they'll often stretch. In order for them to get into their driveway, they have to park in front of the neighbors, or park in front of the access to the park, or those pieces that go by. So that's part of the challenge of reaching that size. So I appreciate the neighbors wondering, how do I get in and out? If I could follow up, how many complaints have we had about these fifth wheels being parked, and how big an issue is it in the city at this point?
Unless the city clerk has that's information, I'd have to come back to you.
I think the city clerk's got an answer for us here.
I'm searching.
And I guess the piece I'm wondering about, are they typically initiated by the complaint of the neighbor, or is it simply by us patrolling the streets? I'm betting it's probably the neighbor that's complaining because of the parking, right?
Yeah. So I'm seeing that it's a fairly relatively small number of obstruction of driveways or blocking. We're talking under 20 for that in this year alone. As for how we enforce, I prefer to allow the general manager of public safety to speak on how his staff would enforce something like this. Maybe as president, if you'd like to ask him that question.
Good afternoon, Glenn.
Looks like I came at the wrong time.
Timing's everything in this business, you know that.
Sorry, if the question could be put to me.
Councilor,
I'm wondering how big a concern, how many examples or cases have you had of issuing tickets for people that are parked on roadways with their fifth wheels or trailers or motor coaches? And have they been initiated by our folks spotting them and noting they've been parked there in excess of the time appropriate, or typically is it come as a result of a complaint of the neighbor?
Generally, when we look at these things, we try and do it in a proactive manner. Many of these types of complaints on residential streets are in a reactive manner. So we receive a complaint, we go there. Ultimately, we try and get compliance by informing the owner of whatever's parked there of the bylaw and how long it can be parked there, and no obstructions amongst driveways or too close to the intersection. Without issuing a ticket, if we are unable to contact the owner, then a ticket is issued. But it is relatively frequent throughout the summer.
So do we typically get compliance, or so it's 10 compliances in one ticket?
Yes. In most cases, and with the majority of the work that we do, when people understand that there is a rule in place, we have an opportunity to explain that to them, why it's in place. They're usually compliant and will move the trailer.
So I guess just to highlight for me is that the point is that it's, I'm sort of wondering what the nature of the complaint is. Are they complaining because they're parking in front of the property and blocking their way, or they're complaining because they've broken the rule? Because I'm just wondering which part of that is driving the issue.
there's different motivations for making complaints. Some neighbors won't get along. If they see a rule that's being broken, they will make that complaint as opposed to going to talk to the neighbor themselves. Or they don't want to cause an issue with their neighbor. So they will have bylaw go instead of confronting their neighbor with respect to that rule themselves. As far as specific motivation, I couldn't really speculate on that.
No, I guess I'm just trying to get a sense of, you know, if the trailer was parked in front of my house all the time, because there's no room and I have to deal with the view looking out my window all the time with this trailer, it can be annoying.
Again, you know, it's laws changing to adapt to changing situations. When we all used to go to campgrounds and a certain size of campsite would fit, they don't necessarily fit the types of trailers that are being purchased now, like triaxle type trailers that are, you know, 15 feet high and 30 feet long, as opposed to what we used to see with the bowler behind the truck. And the same thing goes when they go to put it on their pad, it doesn't fit. So we have situations where trailers are hanging out into the sidewalk. So to avoid that, they put it on the street. And we've always had that issue with the number of driveways we have, extra wide driveways, less parking spaces. It's dominant.
That answer your question, Councillor?
Yeah.
Councillor Monroe.
I have just a question as to other provinces, both Saskatchewan and Alberta. Is this on par with what other cities are doing, or are we completely strict by enforcing this bylaw?
On which part of the bylaw?
For having the trailer parked beyond certain hours, beyond 48 hours, correct?
Provincial law, you can't park anything for more than 72 hours.
So are we completely out of ballpark, would you say, or are we on par with other communities?
He's done that research. The communities I've worked in, that's on par. Ours says 48 hours excluding Sundays and statutory holidays.
Right.
So that allows you to park, you know, if you parked Friday, you would be okay till Monday.
So it's not being unreasonable. Right. Thank you.
We could provide you with that research too, if you'd like to see a report comparison along those lines.
Right, just because we try to, I guess, pride our city on being on par with other communities when it comes to other bylaws and other things, so I don't see why this would be something out of sort where we would decide, oh, let's be a lot more lenient on this compared to other cities. So yeah, I would like to actually see that information.
Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you. I just want to be clear again, I asked in the first place, and Councillor Monroe, I think, has taken this in a different direction. I just want to make sure where I'm at. Right now, it's 48 hours. Today, that's what's in place. The trailer is 48 hours to move, correct?
48 hours.
What's proposed in here is that goes away. It's immediate. It's not 48 hours. They do not have 48 hours to move it, correct?
If it's unhitched,
Right.
The difference now is hitched to unhitched.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So there is no, we're taking away what's on par with other communities. We're not doing what's on par. We're being super stressful about it and taking that completely out. So that's the one thing. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the right page, because I could have been wrong on my understanding. The second part is, we talk about efficiencies and we talk about what our bylaw officers should and shouldn't be doing. I'm not understanding why we're spending so much time on this. You know, from that side, is that where we want our bylaw officers focusing on it? We're going to change the rule so it's immediate, you have to move it away. I'm in support of 48 hours, absolutely. Bylaw can enforce that all day long. But I don't want my bylaw officers spending their time looking for 24-hour trailers. I don't think it's good use of bylaws time.
Councillor Corson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just to reiterate part of what Councillor Buckingham said, is that I'm really only concerned with the hitched versus unhitched argument. Everything else about it, I totally agree with. It's just the hitched versus unhitched and whether they're treated differently. And I'm pretty firm on that. I'd like to, you know, bring this back with potentially a different look at it on that basis. But I did have two other questions. One is about parking in a bus stop. I'm assuming that that means only at the schools, like within the school's bus lanes, because otherwise, you know, where kids are picked up on regular streets, those are just normal parking spots in front of houses. So I assume that it's not referring to those, correct? No, and they're also unmarked in front of regular households.
Yeah, they would be marked bus stops. So.
Okay. The only other question I had, you know, I was out and about with my kids on the weekend. I saw a minion flinging a sign around saying come shop somewhere. Is that activity allowed to occur under this? Because it says under the pedestrian rules that you cannot have anyone trying to solicit business with signs or anything like that. Or there's a fine for it, up to $50 rather than 5 to 10. Is that a process where you can still be permitted to have a minion trying to get people in to buy costumes or something like that?
That's something I'm not at this point aware if we have a permit for the minion spinning the sign, something to that effect, but I'm gathering you're speaking to a person out there flinging.
Yeah, well, it's not even the flinging. It's just it's the pedestrian rule here, if I'm looking at it right. Hold on, zoom out, zoom in, we're getting there. It's to stand on the roadway for the purpose of soliciting. I see that someone standing there with a sign is for the purpose of soliciting, and you're standing on a roadway. Unless the roadway means the physical road and not the sidewalk or...
In this case, the roadway would be the road right of way. So the sidewalk, they'd be fine. And the sign or on their property in front of their business or anything.
That's what my question should have been. Yeah. The definition of roadway there. Good, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Baker and Councilor Monroe. Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Richard. I have one more that, actually I have more than that, but I'll just leave it at one for now. And that's the one about trucking earth, sand, gravel, etc. onto city streets. Well, good luck. We've got all kinds of landscape companies, gravel companies, oil companies that run over our streets every day, every direction. And if we're going to have a tire wash at every entrance to this city, it isn't going to work. The biggest concern I have is people that don't fix their parking lots up and they sit in the mud for 2 weeks and they pull out. You can follow them. That's one issue. That's an issue that could be fixed. But I don't know how many oil tankers enter the city every day that go on gravel or mud leases that drag mud into our city. We used to say that smell was money, that dirt on the streets. Well, if we want a clean city like the top of this is covered, then ban all the oil trucks and everybody else from your city. But I think you're just going out on a limb trying to enforce that kind of a bylaw. And on top of that, you're going to get pushed back like you'll never, ever understand, I believe. So, as I said earlier, Your Worship, I wish we could sit down at a committee of the whole and go through this whole program and make sure the logic is there, because we have to deal with the folks on the other end of the line. And thank you.
I just want to clarify that I perhaps read it wrong, I guess. So 8.9 reads, no person shall park an unhitched trailer on any roadway, and no person shall park a motorhome or a trailer attached to a vehicle on any roadway for a period that exceeds 72 hours. So I read that as all three, unhitched, a motorhome, or a trailer attached to a vehicle for more than 72 hours. But you're saying that it's not all.
Yeah.
Okay, so my misinterpretation, I guess, that... Okay, I just read 8.9 that way, so that doesn't give you like A, B, and C. So I apologize for that.
So the intent of 8.9 there is that an unhitched trailer would not be parked on the roadway.
And at any point in time.
At any point in time. And then if it's a hitched trailer or attached to a vehicle, then it's there for the 72 hours. And as Glenn mentioned earlier, that would be holidays and the week of Sundays wouldn't be included in that count. Glenn could probably explain better than me the unhitched trailer rationale, so maybe I'll let him take a crack at that.
I just want to apologize though, because I read it as all three were allowed for 72 hours. So the unhitched trailer being allowed for 0 amount of time doesn't give people even time to unpack their bags, so I do understand that.
So based on, I do appreciate the explanation on some of this, but I think where the direction the administration is looking for, is this ready to come to council? I don't think it is my general feeling. And I would like to suggest that it would go back for more GPC work as a committee, as Councilor Baker referred to as the committee of the whole, to tear into this a little bit because I know there's been questions asked of myself and as council has indicated themselves about the playground starting with the ball diamonds. Understanding that whole thing, the timing and things like that. And I think at the end of the day, public safety is the most important. That's what every bylaw is created for. But how do we get to that? So if council is in agreement, I think that this might need a little bit more time at GPC because it's growing. Councillor Batchak?
Your Worship, if I could just add, I think that probably some of the research that we've done may give us a context of what other cities and municipalities have done, and even some reference to their experiences as well. Because we can spend $1 on a 1 cent problem, and at times I feel like that's what we're doing here. If we have 20 instances of a trailer, or mostly it's because the complaint comes from the neighbor, it doesn't matter what you put here in a bylaw. If you're being a jerk and parking from someone's driveway, you're going to still get the 20 complaints. So, this does give the leverage and the tools for our bylaw officers to do their job. I get that, and I think that's where its role is, but let's not invest, $1 on a 1 cent issue.
Councillor, of course.
Thank you, Worship. Great point. And this is just a suggestion, take it or leave it, but perhaps it actually fits within 8.6 that says no person shall park an unregistered or uninsured vehicle on any roadway, to say uninsured vehicle or trailer on any roadway, and that would actually deal with the uninsured issue, because by the same nature you don't know whether a trailer is insured or not insured when it's unhitched. You wouldn't know the vehicle is unless you're looking into it or if it didn't have plates on it or something like that. So my other question was just similar to what Councillor Batchak was saying on dealing with these 1 cent problems or $1 problems. So I had asked administration for some kind of statistics on handicap parking infractions. And if I remember right, this year we're at 44 so far. Sorry?
This year's 33 so far. 2017 was 91 and 2016 was 86.
So I guess the question to council is, are those big enough problems that necessitate having a higher fee to deter people from doing it? Or is that a small enough number that says that $100 is getting the job done? It's a general question. And to me, it sounds as though, 100 infractions for probably, I don't know, let's say 6,000 vehicles or 7,000 vehicles in town. It's a best guess. But is it that big of a problem that it needs a higher fee? So, anyway. So leave us with that for now.
I'll look to council for direction because that's what administration's asked of us. Again, there's a couple options and we can always add an option if so wish. So I'll look to council for direction on how we should proceed. Because this was received for information and council and administration is looking for direction from councils for the next step. Council Buckingham.
The council request more information on the traffic bylaw to be brought forward to another GPC meeting.
We don't make resolutions, you just instruct us and we'll go back.
Oh, can you go that way? We don't need a motion? Okay. If general consensus of council.
In fact, that certainly that contextual information around, so how many infractions, what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with a mountain or molehill? And I'm hearing with the number of infractions down significantly. We're into September and we've only had 33 versus 90 plus, whatever it is. So something's working in that context. I guess the question would be is what's a reasonable number of even this trailer infractions? So.
Okay, based on the city clerk's advice, that this will go back to administration for some more work, and we'll have another round at it at a GPC and continue to build on it, because it is a fairly lengthy document.
If I could ask council if they could forward any other primary concerns onto the city manager, and then the administration can have an opportunity to go through those and provide some answers back at that GPC meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, city clerk. Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Moving on to the agenda, I see the next item would be 7.5 under operations. I'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Worship, to present the Downtown Area Redevelopment Plan Committee appointments. I'm going to ask our Executive Director, Executive Manager of Operations for our company, along with Sam from our planning department to present.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. After interviewing all the candidates that had applied to be on the downtown area redevelopment committee, we came up with the following names. These would not include SAD people who would assist and not be voting members of that committee. If I just call SAD forward to read the names, please.
Good afternoon, Sam.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I thought I wasn't going to give you a presentation. Good afternoon, Council. Our administration is bringing forward this, the list of selected candidates for the DERB Advisory Committee that's to Council for approval. And we are recommending that Council approve this list as those who will be members of the DERB Advisory Committee. And now the DERB is the Downtown Area Development Plan. We have, the last time we came here, we had presented this to Council. Council wanted at least one of the members to be a council member. And then we had different categories for all the other members, for being business owners and property owners in the downtown, just to show their commitment to the process. Then we have people in the arts, that's crafts, arts, and the type of businesses we have in the downtown. And then we have 2 or 3 members of the public that were added to that. Now, the Council commissioned the approval of these of the DERB in April 30th of 2018, and it was part of the process of engaging relevant stakeholders that reflect current needs of the city in the downtown. We had critiqued what was going on in the downtown and recommended that Council directed that we continue with the project. Now, the DERB Advisory Committee has 6 major functions, which was expressed in the terms of reference. One, to serve as advocate or champion for the downtown plan. We need that champion, we need the champion through the process, somebody to motivate the populace, get people really energized towards the project. Then they will provide suggestions to Council and the project team on aspects of the project referred to the committee, and respond to requests for information, data, resources by the project team, support public awareness, especially the public engagement process, which is going to be a major component of this project. Now, the expression of interest that we published around for 2 weeks, and after those 2 weeks, we had 17 candidates that showing indicated interest. So we had to now layer that over, because the maximum number we had was 10 members of the public and then 1 council member. So we had to go through the process of actually having dialogue with those who indicated interest in this. So we had dialogues, myself, executive manager, and members of another member of staff. I sat and had some very valuable chats with them. Now, the options we have are the ones we have on the 3rd page of the RFP. One is either to approve the appointment of the resident request that will bring back information to a future meeting, or recommend that we not proceed with the appointment. Our recommendation, though, is the first line there, which states that we want Council to approve the appointment of these residents to the Downtown Area Development Plan. And the list, if you permit me, I still want to at least have for courtesy's sake, we want to read their names out, if you don't mind. That's Councilor Stephanie Brown-Moreau as the Council a council member on the committee, then Mr. John Rokoshi, is a property and business owner, Nelly Kim, another property owner in the downtown, Don Hames, another property owner and a business owner too, then Hannah Beckson, a downtown business owner, Ben Harrison in the arts and culture category, Boristar in the arts and culture category, Natalie Olson in the arts and culture category, and then Michelle Weicker, Luke Rosso, and Serena Jodin as members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Is there any questions or comments? Sir, Councilor Rocky, yeah.
Thank you, Worship. Just one comment, and then I entertain the motion if that's okay. Really good to see so many people come out and put their name forward for this. To get 17 people that put their name forward, I think is a testament to downtown and people's engagement in the process. So if you one of those 17 people that put your name forward and aren't on this list, please know that we thank you for your interest in doing so, because it just shows the kind of community we live in and the kind of support that we're getting to do this downtown area revitalization plan. So on my behalf, at least, thanks very much for that.
Councilor, I think Councilor Clayton has quickly, good. Before you entertain the motion, I'll just add that I believe that there's opportunities, and I want to make sure the public understands, this is not people that they're an advisory committee, they'll be seeking input and encouraging more input from people. This is just a mechanism, one of the pieces of this puzzle. This is a large puzzle that City Council's asked administration to tackle. We hired a consultant to lead to where we want to get to. And I think that's what's important is if you were one of the 17, as you mentioned, Councilor, that didn't get selected, we still value that input and we'll continue to seek input, but we do need somewhat of a steering committee to base it on, and that's how we arrived at the 12. Thank you very much for making that recommendation, Sam, from that perspective. I think it's important that people understand that we will be seeking a lot more input. There'll be open houses, there'll be opportunities to chat with the committee, I'm sure, and council to help ensure the consultant that information transfer occurs. That's, I really want to stress that today. Councilor, if you'd like to make a motion, I can certainly entertain it unless there's anyone else that has something that they want to add. Councilor
Thank you, Worship. That council appoint the following residents of the city of Lloydminster to the Downtown Area Redevelopment Plan Advisory Committee: Stephanie Brown Monroe, John McCoachy, Nellie Kim, Don Haynes, Hannah Beckson, Ben Harrison, Bonnie Stark, Natalie Olson, Michelle Weicker, Luke Russell, and Serena Shaheen.
Thank you, Councilor Seconder. Councilor Dyshak. Any further comments or questions before I call for the question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Senator. Moving on to the agenda of 7.5.2, I'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Worship. To present 7.5.2 Cannabis Retail Store, Paul Roxanne from Planning.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council, City Manager. Before you is a request that Council approve the Cannabis Retail Store minor to be located at 8120 44th Street with a variance to increase the store size to the 2,300 square feet is the maximum variance power granted to us through Land Use Bylaw 5, 2016. We adopted the bylaw 14, 2018 on June 11th to incorporate cannabis within our land use bylaw. On June 12th, we started accepting cannabis retail store applications. An application was submitted for the 8120 44th Street address, which is direct control. Direct control through our bylaw requires council to make the decision whether it's approved or not. The letters were submitted as well as an ad went into the newspaper informing residents and landowners that there is this application proposed for unit number 5 at 8120 44th Street. It was advertised for 14 days. Within that 14 days, we also received an application from the applicant for a variance to increase the size to 15% or the 300 square feet, which is the maximum allowed through our bylaw. To date, there have been 0 concerns or comments submitted to me. The variance application referral period ends Wednesday, 2 days from now. Again, we have had zero responses. The land is subject to highway corridor commercial surrounding it, as well as it is part of the highway corridor overlay. There have been cannabis retail sales applications approved within the C2 Highway Corridor Commercial District, conditionally at this point. All the other stores have had an opportunity to submit a variance application, of which none had. Subject for the approval is that they still must comply with all the regulations under the Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission, so AGLC, as well as provide a sample of that approval to us within a specified amount of time. So at this point, and should council not approve this application, the applicant does have the ability to appeal the decision to the Municipal Government Board, as it is direct control, and that is the mechanism for an appeal. So at this time, I am asking that under the options that council approve the cannabis retail store minor for 8120 44th Street with the variance to increase the store size to the 2,300 square feet as the maximum variance power granted through the land use bylaw.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments, Councilor Torres?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just curious, just generally, the only issue I have with this is the timing of it. And I understand you've had no complaints about it yet. However, you know, even though people say this when there's really no reality to it, but when people say, well, the decision's already been made, there's no use in complaining, this may actually be the case where that's true, because the time period for you know, someone with a concern to come to planning to say they have a concern won't be expired yet before the council decision's made, because that's in 2 days. And I get it, there's been nothing so far. I just wonder from a, you know, from an optical standpoint, it doesn't look ideal if your council saying, well, we're just going to go around the process and approve or not approve what we want anyways, even though we haven't given people all the time they're normally required for an appeal or for a complaint to be registered.
Thank you. And perhaps I wasn't clear enough on that. The use itself expired, let me just take a look. It was advertised on August 9th for the use itself, so that has since expired. It gave the 14 days ending, I want to say August 29th, August 30th.
Okay.
So within that time, we received an additional application for the ability to increase the size of the store from the 2,000 square feet that a minor is limited to within the highway corridor commercial or any commercial district. We do have the 15% variance granted to us through the land use bylaw that we could increase the size of this particular retail or any particular retail with size restriction. So in this case,
so we're only talking about the size
issue. The variance itself is the only one that the referral period has 2 more days. With the time restriction, we felt it was reasonable to include this additional request as part of this application or this presentation.
Councilor Baker.
Just a quick question. The original application, was that at the same location?
Yes.
It was 2,000 square feet at that time.
The application came in as 2,000 square feet, yes.
It was 2,000 square feet. Why didn't they apply for 2,300 to start with?
That's a good question.
Did they buy 2 permits?
They paid for 2 more permits, yes. One for the original application and one for the
Somebody didn't
variance.
get the tape measure up is what you're telling me.
Maybe. I can't.
Yeah. Do we check the size of those places?
It is through the, I don't go in and measure the size, but it is on a site plan. And the site plan is provided by a draftsperson. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Councilor Jacques.
So, just for clarification, would this, because this is under direct control, is that the only reason why it's in front of us here?
Correct.
Okay, so otherwise we wouldn't even see this?
Correct.
So, like administration on a different site would have the latitude and authority to say, yes, there's a 15% variance, you're within it, see you later, it's all good.
Correct.
So really, it's direct control is the issue here.
Right, direct control through the land use bylaw, unless specifically expresses that someone other than council makes the decision, it is taken to council.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Richard. Just as an educational piece for me again, when they sent the second application in to expand the size of this, does that now trigger a whole new time frame versus the first one that was expiring in 29th or 30th of August or whatever? And the second one comes in triggering another time frame, which you're saying expires this Wednesday, correct?
For the referral period, yes. Whatever the decision that is made today, it does and is required to be and will be advertised in the newspaper for a 21-day appeal period. So should anyone have any concerns about the decision or conditions of that decision, it is advertised in the local newspaper. A notice of decision is issued with the conditions, and anybody has the right to appeal it.
So if we didn't go ahead with this today, it would put them outside of the legalization gate, for example, to even be able to open. So that would be honest, that implication would actually make it, so they would be open first day. Okay.
We also mentioned to me was that they will not start the renovations until they have a decision from council.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess to deal with the small issue that I have, that maybe is a very small issue, I wonder if we can just amend the motion just to say subject to no appeals or
appeals being filed
prior to the expiration of the September 12th. Because you don't want to still take away that anyone's individual's ability to follow the process. There's a process there for a reason. We shouldn't just go around it, even in the case where it is small potatoes.
Okay.
Is everyone clear? So what Councilor Torres and I understand, because we're not quite at the end of the last 2-week review period that citizens, any resident can comment, this would allow us to say if no one else comments by Wednesday, basically, then if City Council so approved that motion, it would take effect. If they so move to approve it, that wouldn't happen until actually after Wednesday is when.
Like closing time Wednesday.
Yeah, closing time.
And that's reasonable.
Does that, everyone clear on what is being proposed or what?
That's exactly what it should be. I would second that on the exact same reason.
Okay, so let's go back then. If you, Councilor Torres, if you'd like to make that a formal motion with your amendment.
Sure. I guess, what's the wording I should use? Just no concerns received. So I move that council approve the cannabis retail store minor for 8120 44th Street with the variance to increase the store size to 2,300 square feet as the maximum variance powers granted to us by Land Use Bylaw 5-2016, subject to no concerns being received prior to end of date September 12th, 2018.
Actually, sure. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Councilor Monroe seconds that. Any further discussion or comments? Is everyone clear? Before I call for the question. All right, not seeing any questions, I will call for a question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, all. Moving on to the agenda. Correspondence and information items with the city clerk. All right. I don't have a prepared mayor's statement of any reports. Certainly I had an opportunity to meet His Worship, Mayor Bisick, in Edmonton and attend the opening banquet for the Ukrainian consulate of Ukraine that was opened in Edmonton that will serve the western 4 provinces. It's a new consulate that was just opened on Friday, and had the opportunity to meet several dignitaries, MPs, MLAs, the list was distinguished, I guess they could say. And the mayor and I had a great opportunity to meet and chat over supper and over the program. So it was a great opportunity. Again, that was a great opportunity also to convey my favorite subject, the wastewater treatment plant. I had a chance to broach one of our Liberal MPs from the city of Edmonton and explained once again that since the last time I met with them in Ottawa in 2017, we're still chugging, looking for money, and we're not digging a hole and putting anything in the ground yet. So that message I got back was he's going to convey that to the cabinet in caucus on Thursday this week. So we'll keep pushing away at this project. But from that perspective, certainly had a chance to meet a couple of cabinet ministers from the government of Alberta and invited them out to our city whenever their opportunity arises. The one item on this week's agenda is the Lloydminster Heavy Oil Show, starting tomorrow night with the opening banquet and ceremonies, followed by the show actually on Wednesday and Thursday. And I encourage anyone and everyone that has the ability to come out and try and help support the industry just by simply being there in their presence would be good. There's a lot of great technology and expertise in our city and around this province and around the country that will be on display. I encourage people to take that in. That's all I have from the mayor's chair right now. Anyone else have anything they'd like to report as councillors? If not, I'll move to any other matters that this council should deal with at this time. Not seeing any, so I'll look to inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are media requests for yourself, Mayor Alvarez, as well as Councilor Monroe.
Thank you. I'll look to council.
Motion to recess.
Motion to recess, seconder. Councilor Fagman. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.